Hello, we're reading Faces at the Bottom of the Well by Derek Bell, one of the great books, and we're reading the chapter on the Racial Preference Licensing Act, or relegalizing segregation. And now they're debating over the act. So I gave you the legal part, and now they're debating. That much I understand, I replied. Managers of hotels, restaurants, and other places of public accommodation have complied with anti-discrimination laws because they have discovered that, for the most part, it is far more profitable to serve blacks than to exclude or segregate them. On the other hand, these same establishments regularly discriminate against blacks seeking jobs. Precisely right, friend. A single establishment, often a single individual, can be inconsistent for any number of reasons, including the desire not to upset or inconvenience white customers or white employees. More often, management would prefer to hire the white than the black applicant. As one economist has argued, racial nepotism rather than racial animus is the major motivation for much of the discrimination blacks experience. But nepotism, I objected, is a preference for family members or relatives. What does it have to do with racial discrimination? Geneva gave me her "you are not serious" smile. Then it hit me. Of course you're not. Of course you're right, Geneva. It is hard to get out of the law enforcement model. You're suggesting that whites tend to treat one another like family, at least when there's a choice between them and us. So that term, like merit and best qualified, are infinitely manipulable. If and when whites must explain why they reject blacks to hire relatives, even when the only relationship is that of race. So unless there's some pressing reason for hiring, renting to, or otherwise dealing with a black, many whites will prefer to hire, rent to, sell to, or otherwise deal with a white, including one less qualified by objective measures and certainly one who is by any measure better qualified. Lord, I knew the man could figure it out. He just needed my presence. Well, since a little sarcasm is the usual price of gaining face-to-face access to your insight, Geneva, I'm willing to pay. Actually, as I think about it, racial licensing is like the approach adopted some years ago by environmentalists who felt that licensing undesirable conduct was the best means of dealing with the industry's arguments that it could not immediately comply with the laws to protect the environment. The idea is, as I recall, that a sufficiently high licensing fee would make it profitable for the industry to take steps to control the emissions, or whatever, and that thereby it would be possible to reduce damage to health and property much more cheaply than an attempt to control the entire polluting activity. Come to think of it, Geneva, there's even a precedent of sorts for the Equality Fund. College football's Fiesta Bowl authorities no doubt had a similar principle in mind when they announced in 1990 that they would create a minority scholarship fund of $100,000 or endow an academic chair for minority students at each competing university. The aim was to induce colleges to participate in the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona, a state whose populace has refused to recognize the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Sunkist Growers Incorporated, the event's sponsor, agreed to match the amount, further sweetening the pot. One university president promised to donate all net proceeds to university programs benefiting minority students. Both examples, remarked Geneva, illustrate how pocketbook issues are always near the top of the list of motives for racial behavior. That's why compliance with traditional civil rights laws is particularly tough during a period of great economic uncertainty. White nepotism becoming most prevalent when jobs and reasonable priced housing are in short supply. During such times, racial tolerance dissolves into hostility. Just as during the 1890s, I interjected, when economic conditions for the working class were at another low point, and there was intense labor and racial strife. Today, whites have concluded, as they did a century ago, that the country has done enough for black people despite the flood of evidence to the contrary. The Supreme Court's civil rights decisions reflect the public's lack of interest. In the meantime, enforcement of civil rights laws, never vigorous, has dawdled into the doldrums, and this inertia encourages open violation and discourages victims from filing complaints they fear will only add futility and possible retaliation to their misery. All true, Geneva agreed, but given the already strong anti-civil rights trends, I argue, wouldn't the Racial Preference Licensing Act simply encourage them? You are resistant, Geneva replied. Don't you see, for the very reason you offer, urging stronger civil rights laws bearing discrimination in this period is not simply foolhardy, it's a waste of valuable opportunity. And this is an important argument. I mean, I know some of you might be thinking, well, he can't be serious. I mean, you're talking about segregation's over. I mean, how could you even do that? But let's be honest, we're still segregated. I live in a community, there's one white person here, I think, and that's it. And it's a poor community. And the community I grew up in, Brownsville, Brooklyn, it's more mixed, but it's becoming gentrified, right? So, and they're pushing more black people out. You know, just because you come into a neighborhood, if there's good, decent rent, you bring your family, you bring your friends. So white people are bringing their family, bringing their friends, and anybody they know, and it's spreading out. And the black community has almost no money. I know you think that we're buying sneakers and we're buying high priced clothes. We really don't have any money. And if you looked at us honestly, you would see we don't have any money. And those little $250 sneakers you get, sometimes that's the only sneakers a person get for the whole year. So you have to really look at things deeply. And sometimes you'll see somebody with $250 sneakers and no coat in the winter. And in the Northeast, it's a struggle. So, you have to look at the reality of our situation when you're talking about coming up with solutions, because we're at an impasse right now racially. There are white people who want to do something. There are black people who we've always wanted to do something. And now we need to figure out what the thing is that we must do. And I don't know what it is, but you got to read and study things like this, and don't take any idea off the table. Until next time, I appreciate your support. I thank you, and take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be safe.